Hi, it's Dwyer, GamblersAdvisory.com, DwyerBoxingNews.com, on Roku, Dwyer Boxing, private channel. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, there are fights where, even though the fight is spirited, even though both guys have their moments, the people ringside know who won the fight. The fighters know who won the fight. The corners know who won the fight. People in the game of boxing, even those not at the fight but who are watching the fight on television, know who won the fight. Really, deep down, everyone knows who won the fight, except perhaps, for whatever reason, the three judges scoring it. Now, I finally had an opportunity to look at the Adamek Steve Cunningham fight. Now, let me just say that understand, you cannot trust anything anyone says after the decision is announced. You should view everything with suspicion, right? The fighter who receives the decision wants to convince people that he actually deserved the decision, right? Even if he thinks he's lost the fight. I believe most fighters believe in themselves, and they'll say to themselves, you know what? I'll take care of this guy in the third fight, in this case, or the rematch in most cases, right? Sometimes fighters get bamboozled by the people around them. Their entourage, right? Understand it's a mutual delusion society, right? The entourage is getting fame, glory, access to VIP events, access to the fights, access to fight locations, right? Because they're members of the entourage. They don't want to upset the cash cow. They don't want to tell the guy they're following around the country, or the guy who's paying their rent or paying their paycheck, who's hired them, who has them in some gym job, right? Who has them getting their coffee for them or ironing their clothes for them. They don't want to tell that guy their meal ticket, you know what, it was a close fight, but I think you lost it, right? What happens, I believe, more times than not, is after the fight, there's a hush. Then guys say, hey, champ, you know you're the man, or, you know, gee, if he wasn't running so much, you would have done more. There's always an excuse, right? Well, we know what actually happened in this Adamek Cunningham fight. Because of the contemporaneous statements of the guys watching the fight. Forget what Freddie Roach has said after the fight took place. Freddie Roach was actually helping announce the fight. And during the fight, at the end of the fight, Freddie Roach agrees with world-class fighter BJ Flores, who's also part of the broadcast team, that Steve Cunningham won the fight. But you already knew Cunningham was on his way to winning the fight because of the statements of Adamek's corner to him after the 10th round. There's only 2 rounds left. And the corner tells him he needs to finish strong. The corner tells him that he's in trouble. It's on the telecast. Listen to what the corner says to Adamek after the 10th round. Well, let me just say, he didn't close the deal. In fact, on my scorecard, he lost the 12th round. Right? What's going on in this fight is accurately summed up early in the fight. I believe it's after the third round, when the mic catches Naseem Richardson in Steve Cunningham's corner. Tell Cunningham he can't beat you. He is shoplifting. And what he means by that is Cunningham would win the round. Then in the last 12 seconds, Cunningham, apparently mindful of the fact that he's been caught late in rounds, would back away from Adamek, and Adamek would charge in, throw a combination. Most of the time, by the way, if you look at the combination, it didn't land, right? Cunningham literally is D'd up. The punches are hitting Cunningham in places like his bicep, his elbow, right? The punches are hitting Cunningham where Cunningham wants them to hit him. In other words, they're not hitting him on the chin or in the temple, places where you know a fighter wouldn't want to get hit. Well, anyway, Ademek's doing a Sugar Ray Leonard move, an Ali move. He's losing the round. He knows there are 10 seconds left or 12 seconds left. He races in. He throws a combination. Several times, the broadcast team, during the telecast, notably Freddie Roach, in giving his scores, and Roach had it close at different points. At one point, Roach says, I have it 3-3. Another point, Roach says, I have it 5-5. Right? But Freddie Roach several times says, I gave that round to Cunningham because I don't believe Adamek did enough at the end of the round to steal the round. Let's talk about it stylistically. Right? Cunningham is shooting a jab. He's outside. When Adamek tries to step inside, Cunningham, at times stationary, like in the third round, at times moving, is somehow able, as Adamek is trying to step forward, to hit him with very hard counters. And Adamek, it's a bit surprising. Adamek actually looks hurt by some of the punches. Right? One round, it looks like Adamek has the upper hand. Then he gets hit with a Cunningham counter, and he literally stumbles backwards. Right? Then he tries to play it off by regaining his composure and coming forward, but it's clear he's been hit with something that has thrown him off balance. Right? What Cunningham does, and he does it brilliantly, is he keeps Adamek guessing by alternating his jab. He throws the jab up top, right? He's right-handed, it's a left jab. He's throwing the jab up top to maintain distance. Then as Adamek comes in, Cunningham throws the jab to the body. And Adamek has no answers for that jab to the body. So then when Adamek starts to kind of defend against the body, then Cunningham comes back up top and mixes in some left hooks. Right? It's a brilliant strategy. Let me point out that the statement after the fight that Adamek made, where he accuses Cunningham of running all over the ring, is ridiculous. Right? Cunningham's movement is actually economical. First of all, some rounds, Cunningham doesn't even move. Right? You also have to ask yourself, how is Cunningham so effective in landing body shots, notably the jab to the body on Adamek, if he's running the whole fight? Obviously, Cunningham's within arm's length. Cunningham also doesn't race around the ring like Amir Khan against Marcos Maidana in the later rounds. Cunningham is just moving side to side. Freddie Roach puts it best when he says that he's keeping Adamek unable to plant his feet. Adamek has to constantly reset his feet. Right? This is what the great lightweight champ Miguel Vasquez does. He keeps you moving your feet so you can't plant and get leverage. There's no question that Adamek, who outweighed Cunningham by 20 pounds, was the heavier puncher. But he wasn't the heavier puncher in this fight. The guy who landed the harder shots was Steve Cunningham. because Adamek never really gets a chance to set his feet and to do what Adamek does best. Let me also point out too, stylistically, this is a different Adamek, or Adamek, however you want to pronounce it, than the one who fought Chris Arreola. Adamek's the flat-footed guy in this fight. He's flat-footed. He's trying to cut off the ring. He's trying to corner Steve Cunningham. Cunningham moves beautifully. Hits Adamek in the mouth so many times that Adamek's mouth starts bleeding. Adamek starts spitting out blood. He's been hit. He's been discouraged, right? And he doesn't have the foot speed to corner Steve Cunningham. Now, let me just say this. When they announced the scores, and I had the fight pretty lopsided, I thought Cunningham won the fight. I'll just put it to you this way. Certain rounds were close. I would encourage everyone to look at the first round. That's a close round. I gave it to Cunningham. Right? I thought Cunningham was the one landing the jab. Right? He was the one catching Adamek to the body. Right? I didn't see where Adamek cut off the ring and landed anything meaningful in that first round. But it's a close round. I would encourage everyone to look at the sixth round. That's a close round. The seventh round. That's a close round. Right? I believe those rounds are the rounds that perhaps the judges gave to Adamek en masse. You would have to give Adamek every one of those rounds for this fight to be close. And I didn't think the fight was close. I thought Adamek's best round was the 11th round. But understand, I thought once Cunningham gets going, I thought Cunningham won the second round. I thought Cunningham won the third round. I thought Cunningham won the fourth round. I thought Cunningham won the 8th round. 8th round's interesting, but I thought Cunningham won the 8th round, the 9th round, the 10th round, the 12th round. When they announced the scorecards, had each judge had Cunningham winning by 3 to 4 rounds, I would not have been surprised. But what's really preposterous is that any judge could have Thomas Adamek winning the fight by 3 rounds. That's preposterous. I mean, understand, the only question here, in my opinion, is how big is Cunningham's margin of victory? I mean, understand, none of the ringside announcers on the announcing team had Adamek winning the fight. Understand, Adamek's corner at the end of the 10th round is not telling him, player, you got this, stick a jab, move, just stay on your feet, don't do something stupid. In fact, we never hear Adamek's own corner tell him he's winning the fight. Never. Right? Never. Let me point out too that German promoter Kalle Sauerland, he saw the fight. He thought Steve Cunningham won the fight by several rounds. Right? As did I. What's happened since then is, of course, since Adamek is supposed to fight Kubrat Pulev, and since, there are moneyed interests who want that fight to go forward, right? If I invest in the Pulev fight, I don't want that fight derailed by having Adamek give a rematch to Steve Cunningham that he might not win. Not only that, if I'm in Pulev's corner, I'd much rather face Tomas Adamek than Steve Cunningham. Right? Cunningham, quite frankly, and it's interesting, he's small at 203 pounds or whatever he weighed for heavyweight. But yet he's 6'3". And he's too fast for most heavyweights. And he moves too well. And he has an excellent jab. Boxing's rock, paper, scissors. You can overwhelm a guy with size if you can track down the guy. But if the guy's too fast for you to track down, and if he's hitting you with jabs to the body on the way in and forcing you to defend yourself, and then hitting you in the mouth so many times that you're cut inside your mouth and you're spitting up blood, and if he's the kind of guy who has your corner telling you, you need to go out there and get a stoppage, and that's late in the fight, right? Then you know that he is a tough opponent. Not surprisingly, after the fight, of course, we're getting all kind of spit, right? And of course, Adamek is saying Cunningham ran. All I can say is there's a difference between running, and I consider running what Oscar De La Hoya did years ago in the last, let's say, 3 rounds against Felix Trinidad, or what more recently Amir Khan did in the later rounds against Marcus Maidana. That's running. That's very different than sticking and moving. All I'm saying is, if Cunningham is just running away from Adamek, then please, somebody ask Adamek who was hitting him with those crisp counters as he stepped forward. Who hit him with the punch that actually had him stagger back into the ropes at one point in this fight? Right? I mean, that's what people need to realize. If Cunningham is ineffective, then why was it that Adamek at the end of several rounds felt a need to try to throw a flurry at the very end of the round to try to steal the round? Right? You wouldn't have to steal a round that you've won because the other guy won't fight you. So to sum up, Steve Cunningham got robbed in this fight. Realistically, he won the fight by 3 or 4 rounds. The fight really wasn't that close. Understand what I'm saying. It's a 12-round fight. Cunningham wins, let's say, 8 rounds. 8-4. If you want to call a round a draw, then it's 7-4-1. Right? The fact that both guys are tired and both guys are acting courageously doesn't change the actual punches that land, right? Tomas Adamek is getting hit with very hard counters. Let me also point out, too, that, you have to question at this point, post-Vitaly Klitschko, Ademek's punch resistance, because he looks like he's stung badly by several other punches. As I make this video, I can't say that Tomas Adamek landed the harder punches in the fight. He didn't. Steve Cunningham did. Right? So I thought Cunningham, quite frankly, outworked Adamek, out-countered Adamek, out-thought Adamek. The punch of the fight for me was Steve Cunningham's masterful jab to the body. You don't see it that often. He completely baffled Adamek with it for the first half of the fight. Let me hear from you. I know the fight's controversial. The promoter after the fight said that in fights like this, nobody really loses. Right? That's a tip-off to the fact that even the promoter knows that Steve Cunningham really won the fight. That at a minimum, if you believe the hype, if you believe Adamek won, then the fight was razor close. Not 115-112 like one of the judges had it. All I can say is, as you watch this fight, ask yourself, is there a scenario in which you'd be able to give the fight to Adamek by 3 rounds? I would say absolutely not. Right? Steve Cunningham raised his reputation with this fight. I believe the consensus, especially as this fight is being replayed on TV over the Christmas holiday, will be that he got jobbed. I think people understand that Steve Cunningham remains a top-notch opponent. Okay, that's my take. Let me hear yours. I know the announcers all thought the fight was close, but understand all of the announcers thought that Steve Cunningham won the fight. I don't know how you get the 115-112 scorecard from this fight in favor of Adamek. That seems preposterous to me. Let me also add that as you're watching the fight, right, let me just point out, you know, the second, third, and fourth rounds, I had Cunningham winning all three of them. The 8th, 9th, and 10th rounds, I had Cunningham winning all three of them. Right? Let me point out the remainder of the fight. I gave Adamek the 5th round. I gave Adamek the 11th round. Right? I'm just here to tell you the remainder of the fight, I thought Cunningham won at least half of the remainder of the fight. But I would encourage viewers to look at the first round, right? Look at the 6th round. Look at the 7th round. Now, the 7th round has one big question, right? Adamek closes the round well. But does he do enough at the end of the round to undo the first 2.5 minutes of the round? That's the question, right? So, food for thought. Let me know your scorecard. I hope you leave it here in the comment section on YouTube. I thought Adamek won this, I thought Cunningham won this fight by a few rounds. Keep in mind too, in the first fight, Cunningham got knocked down 3 times, right? Let's say each of those knockdowns is a 10-8 round. Let's say that Tomas Adamek, based on those 3 rounds, should be up by 6 points. But yet one of the judges actually gave that first fight to Steve Cunningham. That first fight was won by Adamek by split decision in really Peter Quillen fashion. In other words, when the two guys were fighting each other without knockdowns, Cunningham dominated the action, right? Well, all I can say is now in this rematch, there were no knockdowns. Do you really believe that in one fight, Tomas Adamek was able to make up the gap in boxing ability? Questionable. Let me hear from you. Thanks for stopping by.